my favorite cloud stocks have gotten pretty complicated here. Take VMware. That's the virtualization software pioneer that lets data centers run multiple virtual machines on a single server. Wall Street had already gotten skeptical of this one in August after the company told us about a pair of pricey acquisitions, Carbon Black and Pivotal Software. Then the cloud stocks went out of style on the Wall Street fashion show no matter what they did. But people didn't have much reason to worry about the fundamentals until about 2 weeks ago when VMware reported a really robust quarter, seemingly muted guidance for 2021. Initially, the stock surged in the news. That was right. For giving up all of its gains, closing down 2% for the day, that was confusing. Since then, it's been going down to the point where I got to wonder, has this been overly punished? Let's check in with Sanjay Poonen. He's VMware's Chief Operating Officer for Customer Operations. Learn more about his company's prospects. Mr. Poonen, welcome back to Mad Money. Good to see you, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Happy
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Great to be on your show.
One of the most confusing moments that I've seen, because even as you said yesterday in a conference call at Raymond James, you wanted to talk about networking. You said, look, it's kind of a slower year for the hardware folks in networking. Geez, but it's been great for you. I don't think people think that you can have a great year without the hardware folks doing well. That's not true.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Our networking business is on fire. We've been in this business 7 years, 13,000 customers. You had a solid quarter, as you mentioned, 12% growth, but the networking part of it grew 50%. And what we're trying to do in networking is highly differentiated. Sort of like the nervous system, we now have a networking stack that goes from the data center to firewalls to load balancers to the branch offices. And we've accumulated now a set of customers, 80 million virtual switches. We're kind of like the Tesla of networking. Right. We're approaching this from a software-defined fashion. And our customers tell us there's probably going to be only two big companies at scale that matter in networking, VMware and Cisco. Right. We're approaching it from the software down, right, and they're approaching it from the hardware up, but today they announced something that may be going even further down in hardware.
Silicon.
I think if we continue to serve our customers well in networking, if you look at some of our largest customers, we're going to become the indispensable nervous system for them for all of their networking, in the data center, to the cloud, to the edge, and up all through all their applications.
Well, I think that you've made two acquisitions that were what your customers wanted. So I was confused why the market seemed a little muted, given the fact that Carbon Black and Pivotal, you've got to provide those.
I think, listen, everything that we do is for the long term.
Right.
And what we did since the acquisitions is explain that to our customers. And we don't get perturbed by the ups and downs of the stock price. We're looking for the long term. We believe that containers is a logical move for a company that's established 70 million virtual machines. And when I was last on your show, I described the containers and virtual machines like ships in the containers in the 1950s. It's a good analogy. And security is sort of a lateral move. And if you look at what we're doing, we mentioned in our conference call, we have $1 billion in security already, and we're probably not that well known of a brand. So we can build on top of that in network security and endpoint security. There's a lot of change going on in that industry, as you know, from a lot of the players that are going through different forms of their future. There has been no network security that's got endpoint security and no endpoint security player that's got network security. Enter VMware, we do something differentiated. As we've talked to customers about both containers and security, they love our vision. We're going to go keep executing, make our customers happy.
Well, maybe we have to just spend a few minutes on the state of the cloud. I think, judging by the way your stock's done, I think people are confused about the state of the cloud, where we are.
Let me make it Sesame Street simple.
Okay.
I just came back from Amazon reInvent.
Right. It's
sort of considered often the mecca of all shows. Right. And if you talk to the customers who went there and to VMworld, we had all of our VMworlds, 100,000 customers come to all of them, maybe 1 million people watching it. There are two key words that customers are telling me. First off, they want to understand migration, migrate. And the other is modernize. It's the M&M, okay?
Okay.
The migrate and modernize motion is what customers want to understand. We are that de facto standard for how customers can migrate in the cloud. Large customers like Freddie Mac talked about how they're going to migrate to the cloud, hundreds of their applications in record time. If you were to do this with other conventional methods, it would take you years upon years. We could do this now in months. We can do it 30 to 50% significantly cheaper. So we think that this is going to be the migrate part, and the modernize part comes with container technologies like the one we're acquiring from Pivotal. These are the two verbs that we think customers are all going to like from VMware.
All right, then let's go back to another way. There was a piece by Piper Jaffray which just said, governance dynamics keeps a floor and ceiling on shares, talking about the idea that with Dell having the power to make strategic moves of your company, that could pressure VMware shares potentially. But there's been no reason for Michael Dell to pressure VMware shares.
Well, I'll tell you, first off, there's a misperception that VMware is sort of, tied to the hardware economy.
Right.
If anything, virtualization abstracts you from the hardware economy. So depending on how the hardware players do, we are a software-defined company. You need us in good times or bad times. On your show a couple of times ago, I said $1 invested in VMware has returned $10 of economic value. Michael Dell has said on your show, and I've also said, what's good for VMware is good for Dell. If you think about some of these motions like migration to the cloud, modernization, we believe that both VMware and Dell can do very happy. We're excited about the partnership. In some of the areas like hyperconverged infrastructure, part of the reason we have now leapt to #1 over players like Nutanix is thanks to the partnership with Dell. And we're going to do more of that in terms of innovating in hyperconverged infrastructure, in the digital workspace, and now in security. Dell has announced that their preferred endpoint security solution is Carbon Black. So the partnership couldn't be ever better.
Well, I do find, we had Nutanix on earlier this week. I know you watched the show. Both companies, you've never said a word negative, and you don't do that. I think that you kind of view everybody as potential partners. It's always been the way. But how about something that is significant that could be impacting your business where you can't make partners, the trade war? Where are we?
Listen, I think long term, we expect and hope that peaceful things will begin. But we have to do things that first make sure that we're abiding by the laws of the land.
Right.
And if we're asked to not do certain ways of business, we're going to abide by the U.S. laws of the land.
Right.
Ironically, our China business was growing. In the midst of everybody else was declining, we had double-digit growth in China.
Incredible.
And this shows the indispensable aspect of what VMware can bring to customers in every part of the globe. We're across every vertical, every industry, every country. But that said, the U.S. government's a very important customer of ours. We abide by the laws of the land, and we will continue to do that in terms of making our business successful across all industries and all geos.
One last thing I think people should know, the excellent piece, how leaders can become better teachers, about the idea we got to teach the next generation, which I find is a drift. You're walking and talking this theory.
Well, I was very honored when Aria Huffington caught that article.
Yeah,
I think you saw it from Aria Huffington's post. Listen, it was a seminal piece of work that affected my life when Noel Tichy taught me that, a professor from Michigan School of Business. And I think some of the greatest leaders, Jack Welch, I'd say in this current generation, other than the people I worked for, Bob Iger, Jamie Dimon, they're incredible leaders. And those of us who've had success, I have a number of Indian immigrants who come to me and say, Sanjay, how have you been successful? And it's my job to lead, and also great leaders are teachers. I recently had the privilege of doing this for a bunch of our vets. They came and said, listen, would you teach us? And that was one of the most impactful days of my life. I was almost in tears listening to their stories and sharing them a small part of my life. That's, I think it's much more blessed to give and receive, and we as leaders have an obligation to teach the next generation.
Well, I'm glad you said that. This is so important, ESG, leadership, undervalued on Wall Street, okay? Undervalued, but not with you. That's Sanjay Poonen, VMware Customer Operations COO. I hope now you understand that there's some factors here that make no sense about where the stock is, because it's better than where the stock is. Mad Money's back after the break.
Don't miss a second of Mad Money. Follow @Jim Cramer on Twitter. Have a question? Tweet Cramer. #MadTweets. Send Jim an email to madmoney@cnbc.com or give us a call at 1-800-743-CNBC. Miss something? Head to madmoney.cnbc.com.